Welcome to Rock and Roll High School, your choice for in-depth and personal conversations with the most legendary artists in the history of contemporary music. Come with us as we explore the albums and songs that have become the soundtrack of our lives. Here's your host, Pete Ganbarg.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Rock and Roll High School. Our guest this week is one of the most groundbreaking and influential performers in rock history, a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer and the undisputed godfather of spectacle, shock, and theatrics, Alice Cooper. As the frontman of the original Alice Cooper band, and later as a solo artist, he redefined what a rock show could be, blending hard rock, horror, vaudeville, and theater on classic albums like Love It to Death, School's Out, Billion Dollar Babies, and Welcome to My Nightmare. Songs like I'm 18, No More Mr. Nice Guy, Only Women Bleed, and Poison have made him a global icon, and have sold more than 50 million records worldwide. Born Vincent Furnier in Detroit and raised in Phoenix, he formed the Alice Cooper Band in the late 1960s before launching a solo career in 1975. Over the decades, he survived addiction, collaborated with everyone from Dick Wagner and Steve Hunter to Johnny Depp and Joe Perry in the Hollywood Vampires, and has remained one of rock's most enduring showmen. Alice joined us recently from the road to talk about his incredible journey from garage band beginnings to theatrical rock pioneer in a career that's still going strong nearly 6 decades later.
I got no friends 'cause they read the papers. They can't be seen with me, and I'm getting real shot down, and I'm feeling mean. No more Mr. Nice Guy. No more Mr. Clean. No more Mr. Nice Guy. They say he's sick, he's a C.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Rock and Roll High School. I am thrilled to be welcoming our guest today, live from the road on tour from Lubbock, Texas today, Alice Cooper. Hi, Alice.
How you doing?
I'm great, man. It's so funny because you just played, you're on tour with Judas Priest. You have been touring, you just told me, since January, and we're recording this in late October of 2025. You just played your hometown of Phoenix earlier this week, and now you're playing Houston this weekend, and it's still going. You still having fun out there?
Oh yeah, touring for me is just part of life. I've been touring since I was 16 years old. I'm 77 now, and I think I'm doing my best shows now.
Amazing. Amazing. I heard a quote from you recently where you said you're either in this game of, the rock and roll life, you're either a lifer or you're not, and that you've always been a lifer.
Yeah. Same with Jagger, same with McCartney and Ringo, and, all those guys that we could have all retired 30 years ago financially, but it's what I love to do. And actually, it really keeps me healthy.
Awesome.
I get up and do 90 minutes a night, 200 times a year. I feel great. I mean, it's just like, if you're not on drugs, you're not drinking, you're not smoking cigarettes, it's a pretty healthy lifestyle.
Right. A buddy of mine went on the road with the Stones maybe like 30 years ago, and he was so excited to see like the sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle, and they were all with their personal trainers and mineral waters,
That's true. I mean, Jagger does a half an hour on a treadmill before he does the 3-hour show where he never stops.
God
and
bless.
My wife says, with all the murder and all of the disease and all of the, death on this planet, what kind of world are we going to leave Keith Richards?
Yeah, they said that when all is said and done, the only 2 things that'll be left will be the cockroaches and Keith Richards. So there you go.
And probably Twinkies.
And maybe Twinkies. Yeah. Keith will need something to eat.
But you got to put Pete Townsend in there.
True.
And you've got to put Rod Stewart in there. And, all Elton John, all the guys that just do what they love to do.
Right.
And especially Bob Dylan.
I
Bob
know,
Dylan,
crazy. 200 shows a year, right?
a year. He never stops. Beach Boys were like that too.
Right.
So I'm just saying there are certain people that were born to be on stage.
It's in your blood. I heard you mention recently that Pete Townsend is still at war with his guitar so many years later.
Well, the great thing about Pete Townsend is I tell young bands, they say, what should we do? And I tell them, go see Green Day. I said, because Green Day brings it every night. I said, and go see Pete Townsend. Pete Townsend is 78, 79, maybe he's 80 years old. I don't know. And his knuckles are still bleeding because he's hitting that guitar so hard.
Right.
And he still has that angst, that Who angst from my generation. I said, maybe that never dies. I hope it doesn't.
Right. So forget about hope I die before I get old. It's like, okay, that's been there, done that. We're good,
Yeah. And, and if you don't have the desire to do it, those are the people that just go, okay, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I can't imagine not doing it.
And I can't imagine anyone going out and seeing an Alice Cooper show, especially if you're on the road with somebody like Judas Priest right now, and not leaving and saying that was the most fun that I've had in a very long time.
It's gotten great reviews. I mean, the two bands together, and on top of it, everybody's friends. Everybody's very good friends. Rob and I have been friends for a really long time. And everybody in our band are best friends. And everybody in their band is best friends. So, I mean, it's really a pleasure.
That's great.
Here's the weirdest thing. You've got these two headliners, and we somebody's got to go on first. And then the other band's got to go on. So we flip-flop a lot. We're arguing to see who gets to go on first.
That'll show you how old you are, right?
It's just one of those things where, well, first of all, you get the audience fresh. You get the fresh audience, and you're going to give them everything you got.
Right.
And they're going to go, oh my gosh, and then they get Judas Priest.
Right.
And the Judas Priest is the top of their game.
Amazing.
And so either they go on first, and then everybody goes, wow, I wonder what Alice is going to do. And then they see our show and they go, oh my gosh, that was a 1-2 punch.
Right. Awesome. And you're still having fun doing it, which is great. So anyone who has the opportunity to go out and see Alice Cooper play, you are at the top of your game. I already saw there are a ton of dates scheduled for 2026. Yeah.
In my band, I surround myself with the best players. I got Tommy, I got Ryan Roxy, Chuck Garrick, Glenn Sobel won Best Drummer in Rock. Nita Strauss is, she's a force of nature.
The rock star.
And you put that together with a stage show that is just, I let the band all the time go, hey, why don't we, or what if we, I'm not one of those guys. I'll say 80 or 90% of the show is between Cheryl, myself, and Shep. But the band is always coming up with ideas. And I'm going, yeah, let's try it.
Right.
I want the show to progress,
Which is awesome. I mean, there's so much to talk about. We call this show Rock and Roll High School, and we actually want to tell the stories of the legends of contemporary music. And if we were telling all the stories of Alice Cooper from the beginning, we'd be here for a week. So, I'm going to hit all the high points. You mentioned your wife, Cheryl. You mentioned Shep Gordon, two very important people in your career. Yeah. Next year, you will have been married to Cheryl for 50 years. Do you want to talk about how you guys met? It was a very rock and roll way.
Well, we, when the band disbanded in 1974, we broke up, but not a bad breakup. It was not, nobody was angry. Nobody was in lawsuits or anything like that. We stayed friends. And so I was going to do something. I had an idea for this thing called Welcome to My Nightmare. And Bob Ezrin said, I'll do it. Shep says, I'm in. And we had auditions. It wasn't going to just be another rock show. It was going to be, it was going to look like a Broadway show. except that it was going to be hard rock and certainly Alice Cooper's strange, look at the world. And she auditioned. We needed 4 dancers, but we needed 2 girls, 2 guys, not rock and roll dancers, though. I wanted Broadway dancers. I needed a ballerina for Only Women Bleed.
Right.
And they auditioned, and out of 2,000 girls, she got the part.
Wow. And it wasn't you choosing her for the audition, right? What?
No. Our director was from West Side Story. I mean, he was the real deal. And he just took one look at her dance and just went, yeah, you out, come here, out there. Because she was heads and tails above any of the other girls.
And she was 18 years old at the time.
She was 17 at the time. Yeah, 17. She turned 18.
Crazy.
And then, yeah. And, I mean, after all the rehearsal and everything like this, I didn't really notice her until I didn't even really know her until rehearsal starts. I wasn't there for the, after that, I never had a second thought about it. She was going to be my wife, and that was it. And she felt the same way. It was very odd.
Wow. And early next year in March, you guys will be celebrating your 50th wedding anniversary.
Yeah, and we're getting married again.
Wow.
And her dad, who married us 50 years ago, is going to marry us again.
That's amazing. I mean, that's one thing I wanted to bring up is that you're both what you call PKs, preacher's kids.
We're both preacher's kids, and my dad and her dad married us. My dad passed away. In rock and roll, it can be done.
Right.
People can stay married. I think Nilsson and his wife have been married longer than that.
Right.
There are a couple of very long marriages. Bon Jovi,
Right. And Sting and Trudy Styler, it goes on and on and on.
Yeah. Which is great. I mean, that just shows you don't have to fall into that. Our idea was once you got married, you were married.
Right.
That was it.
But when you're on the road being a rock star, there were times that you have publicly talked about your addiction. So having somebody like Cheryl in your corner, she must have laid down the law and said, look, I'm not staying with you unless you get your act cleaned up.
Well, there was that point. And, I really I really kept it all in check for a long, long time. I was a very functional alcoholic, extremely functional. I was never drunk. I was never falling down. I was never angry. I was never mean. I was Dean Martin. I was on that nice golden buzz until cocaine came around. And then cocaine came around and changed everybody I know.
Right.
It just changes you. And so I stopped and I said, never again. That was 42 years ago.
Right.
And no, I mean, we've never had a crossword with each other since then.
Amazing. You've been clean since 1983, which is awesome. And now the other relationship that has been going on as long, if not longer, in your life is Shep Gordon.
Yeah.
And I love the story about how you and Shep first met. Can you tell that for somebody who wouldn't know that story?
Yeah, well, and Shep is very vocal about this. 1968, we went to LA to conquer the world and then realized there were 20,000 other bands that were there for the same reason. And so we ended up living in the Chambers Brothers basement in Watts.
The Chambers Brothers, for those who don't know, were one of the great early rock bands. Time Has Come Today. You're talking about the mid to late 60s. They were also very close with Jimi Hendrix. Exactly.
So Jimi Hendrix would come over there and he was buying his grass from a guy named Shep Gordon, who was living at the Landmark Hotel, who was also selling grass to Jim Morrison and Janis Joplin and everybody else. So Jimi Hendrix went to him and said, Shep, you're a young, good-looking kid from New York. You're Jewish. You should be a manager. And he says, I know this band that needs a manager. And he was talking about us. And so they brought us over there. And I opened the door, and I thought there was a smoke machine inside, because it was just fog. And I cleared the air, and there's Shep. And he goes, I'm your new manager. And I went, okay. that's fine. The very next day, we signed with Frank Zappa.
Right.
Now, the
Right.
day before, we didn't have a manager, so Herbie Cohen thought, well, he would be our manager.
Herbie Cohen was Frank Zappa's partner.
Right. So
Right.
when we got in, he said, "Who's this guy?" And I said, "Oh, that's our new manager." And they said, "When did you meet him?" They said, "Last night."
Little did anyone know that Shep Gordon would become, one of the greatest managers of all time, and you were his first client.
Absolutely. And
talk about when the smoke cleared in that first meeting with Shep. Who else was in the room?
Everybody. Arthur Lee, I think David Crosby, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin. Everybody always went to Shep's room to get high.
Amazing.
And we were elated. We used to be able to make a joint last for a week, because that's all we could afford. And so here we were in the middle of all this. And like I said, for 55 years now, we still don't have a contract. Everything is, I just said, why don't you just take care of the money things and I'll take care of the show. And that was it. And, he's still my best friend. So, yeah, we've really lived our entire lives together.
Which is awesome. There's a great quote from Shep where he said, "We realized early on with Alice that if we really, really upset the parents, that the children would really, really like us."
That wasn't just accidental. The parents really did not like us because we were not peace and love. We were much more horror. We were much more Ferrari, switchblades, and blondes.
Right. Yeah.
And everybody else was peace and love.
Right.
We were never hippies. Yeah.
Right. So you signed your first deal, you mentioned, with Frank Zappa, and you had said that you and Frank Zappa had the same sense of humor, so it made sense, even though he really didn't get your music.
Yeah, he listened to us play, and he went, "I don't get it." He says, "Well, you've got 5 songs that are 2 minutes long, and each song's got 23 changes in it. And they don't even go back and repeat the changes." And I went, "Yeah." And he said, "I don't get it." And I said, "Well, is that bad?" And he goes, "No, I'm Frank Zappa and I don't get it." He said, "Of course I'm going to sign you."
Right.
And then he says, where are you from? San Francisco or New York? Or I said, "No, I'm from Phoenix, Arizona." And he kind of looks out and he goes, "Now I really don't get it."
So he had a label called Straight and a label called Bizarre, and that's who signed you for the first 3 albums. Ultimately, you guys would end up on Warner Brothers because that's where Straight and Bizarre were distributed through, and then they picked you up, and that's when the hits happened, right?
Yeah, well, what happened was he listened to us play, and we could play those songs, those complicated little songs, live perfectly. And he says, "That's what I want to do." He says, I want, nobody's going to believe that a band can play this complicated kind of stuff live. So I want to record it that way. We recorded A Pretty's for You, I think, in 2 days. Because all we did was just set up and played.
Go now, let's see what's going on. See inside. It's quite inside. See.
Frank didn't have anything to do with arranging it or anything. He just recorded us.
Right. He's listed as a producer on that first album.
Right, which was fine. That was great. And the second album, Easy, was a little bit more, even though it was crazy as hell, it was a little bit more listenable. Now people listen to Pretty's for You and they go, "That's so, it's art. It's so, it's Captain Beefheart.
Right,
it's,
right.
We never heard of Captain Beefheart. This was truly original stuff for us.
Right.
The big change was when we met Bob Ezrin.
That was gonna be my question. When did you meet Bob, and what influence did he have on you production wise?
Well, we wanted Jack Richardson. We wanted Jack Richardson to produce our album. Shep went to Canada. Jack was Canadian, so he didn't want to say, I don't want anything to do with this. So he says, I'll tell you what, I'll send one of my assistants to come and see Alice play at Max's Kansas City in New York City. So he sent Bob. Bob sat there and watched it and went, I love this. He said, I don't know what it is, but I know that it's world changing.
Wow.
And so he comes back to Jack Richardson and he goes, okay, I know I'm fired. He said, but I signed them. And Jack says, okay, then your punishment is you have to produce them. Well, Love It to Death, Killer, School's Out, and $1 Billion Babies, all triple platinum albums. Yeah, Bob Ezrin. Yeah. But what he did was he took the best parts of the songs and just kind of pushed them into shape.
Right.
Until 18 was a punk hit.
Right.
It didn't belong on the radio, but it did.
I'm 18 and I don't know what I want. 18, I just don't know what I want. 18, I gotta get away. I've gotta get out of this place. I'll go running in outer space again.
Right. He basically he trimmed the fat.
That was it.
And it turns out that you guys were actually really good songwriters. There was a lot going on, and it was Bob Ezrin who was able to come in and keep the good stuff and get rid of the rest.
We understood arrangement, but we understood arrangement on our terms.
Right.
And that was if it kind of fit together and it had a sense of humor to it, and it also had a sense of dread to it, well, that's fine.
Right.
I'm fine with that.
I was going to say on I'm 18, you mentioned that it was a punk hit. Something that I love about that song, I'm 18 or 18, it's been called both things, that it was Johnny Lydon's audition song for the Sex Pistols.
Yeah, it absolutely did not belong on the top 40 next to Frank Sinatra or the Beatles or Led Zeppelin. It stood out, and it really did do something different to the radio.
It was a smash, and this is 1970, and all of a sudden you guys are back in Detroit where you grew up. You hear it on CKLW on the radio, and you have to pull the car over. You're like, what?
Yeah, that really was. At the time, what Nirvana was to the radio was what we were. It was so unique and different that people just had to play it.
Right. Crazy. At what point we skipped over, the band naming. Originally your first band was Earwigs, and then you became Spiders, and then you became the Nazz. At what point did you guys change the name, and why Alice Cooper?
Well, we were the Spiders. We liked that name, but it was just, kind of a so what name after a while. And the Nazz was cool because we named it after the song Nazar Blue by the Yardbirds. And then we found out that Todd Rundgren's band name was Nazz, and they already had an album out. So we had to change it. The whole idea behind it was, we came up with all these really horrific names. The Husky Baby Sandwich, things like that. And I said, let's go the other way. What if our name is something that's, it's like Betty Crocker? I was thinking of Betty Crocker, and I thought Alice Cooper, and we went through all these other, and Alice Cooper just stuck. It sounded to me like the name that didn't belong with this band more than any other name.
Right. And probably a couple of decades later, it was the same thinking that Marilyn Manson had when he gave his name, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And Marilyn's a friend of mine now. And by the way, he's been sober for about 2 or 3 years now, and he's
right.
really in good shape.
Great. I heard you give a quote about the name Alice Cooper, that it's a prototypical little old lady who lives down the street, who makes cookies for the kids and may or may not have bodies buried in her basement.
Exactly. That's exactly who. And I kept thinking about, Baby Jane.
Right.
I kept thinking about Betty Davis with that really horrific makeup that was
Yes.
cracking,
Right.
and the really bad lipstick and the overly done eye makeup. And I said, that's what Alice should look like.
Right. At that point, the band is Alice Cooper. You're still Vince, right?
I'm still Vince, but everybody calls me Alice because they figured, well, the lead singer is Alice Cooper. And I was Vince. And then all of a sudden I just said, enough. Okay, I'm Alice Cooper. And I changed my name legally.
Well, let's talk about some of the other songs. Obviously, 18 is a hit, then School's Out is a hit. Bob Ezrin has a thing with kids' choruses, which he would do on School's Out and later do on Another Brick in the Wall. You now mash those songs up live. Talk about School's Out. It became the national anthem.
Yeah, it really did. We understood what an anthem was after hearing My Generation.
Right.
My Generation was an anthem because 100 years from now, a 16-year-old kid hears that song and goes, oh, he's talking about me.
Right.
I am that guy. And same thing with 18. Everybody relates to 8 because everybody was 18.
Right.
At the same time, at some point, everybody hated school.
Right.
And so if you could capture the last 3 minutes of the last day of school before vacation, summer vacation, that would be a joyous song, even though it was subversive.
Well, we can't salute ya, can't find a flag. If that don't suit ya, that's a drag. School's out for summer. School's out forever. School's been blown to pieces.
I mean, it's funny. Every year, school ends, and you hear that song. Elected is the next hit that you guys have, and you wrote that as a tribute to the Who.
Yeah, oh yeah. It just sounded. We wanted that big Pete Townsend chord at the beginning, and that song was another one of Bob Ezrin. At the end, his orchestration was just crazy on it, and it was so grand and so. And we hated politics with it. To this day, I hate politics.
Right.
And so I was going to be my one jab at politics.
Right.
And it became a major hit. I am so surprised that nobody has ever used it in their campaign.
Right. Well, you used it in your campaign. Every 4 years, Alice Cooper runs to president. The campaign is a troubled man for troubled times.
Right. And I am praying that nobody ever votes for me. I would hate that job more than anything in the world.
There you go. And I Want to Be Elected became I Want to Be Sedated. Talk about a tribute the other way around with the Ramones paying tribute to you.
Yeah, and the Ramones were great. I mean, they were very open about that. Joey and I were pretty good friends.
Yeah,
and
no, for sure.
He liked the whole idea, and they did it perfectly.
Right.
The Ramones did it perfectly. They didn't try to get complicated. They just said, I want to be sedated.
Right. And my favorite Ramones story is when they auditioned for their record label, they played 20 songs in 18 minutes or 18 songs in 20 minutes or something like that. Perfect.
Yeah. Well, which was great because they never tried to get out of who they were.
Yeah, 100%. So a few songs, you end up having a string of hits in the 70s that are all ballads. Only Women Bleed, I Never Cry, You and Me, How You Gonna See Me Now, most of, if not all of them, co-written with Dick Wagner. How You Gonna See Me Now, co-written with Dick Wagner and Bernie Taupin. But no one expects this, macabre, vaudevillian horror rock artist to have these ballads. So what was the thinking behind that?
First of all, they would not play rock and roll on the radio at that point. That was disco heaven. Everything was disco. So if you really look at it, Aerosmith, they would only play ballads from Aerosmith. They would only play ballads from Kiss.
Right.
So all of us got put into that category of, well, we want to play you, but it's not going to be your rock and roll. It's going to be disco. So we just kept hitting. The whole album was rock and roll, but we would do one ballad.
Right.
And Dick Wagner and I just seemed to write really good ballads together.
Right. I mean, think about these copyrights. Only Women Bleed was covered by Tina Turner. It was covered by Etta James.
She cries alone at night too often. He smokes and drinks and don't come home at all. Only women bleed. Only women bleed. Only women bleed.
You and Me was covered by Frank Sinatra, of all things.
You and me are no movie star. What we are is what we are. We share a bed, some loving, and TV. Yeah. That's enough for a working man. What I am is what I am. I'll tell you, sweetheart, that's just enough for me.
Yeah, he did it at Hollywood Bowl, and that's the greatest compliment you can get. That Frank Sinatra does one of your songs,
and he said to you, "You keep writing them, kid, and I'll keep singing them."
And I went, I have a picture of him and I at home.
Wow.
And we're both in tuxedos, and I was a Rat Pack guy for about 25 minutes.
I also love that you've described these ballads as heavy metal housewife rock.
I figured if you can break the girl's heart, in other words, if that one lyric hits on that one minor chord, you're going to break the girl's heart. And I would play it for my wife and my two daughters, and they'd be listening to it and listening. And then if I could get them on that one moment to say, "Oh, I knew I had a hit."
That's all I got to give you. Believe me, babe, it ain't been used. My heart's a virgin, it ain't never been tried. And you know, I never cried.
And they did. They exactly at the right time. They'd look at each other and went, "Oh."
So fast forward around 10 years, you have a massive hit with Poison. And that was with our friend Desmond Child. Do you want to talk a little bit about Poison before we finish up?
Yeah, Poison was interesting because when those songs, the whole 80s records were coming out, and they were all really good. The hair bands all made really great records and great videos. I kept hearing songs I really liked from Bon Jovi, from Aerosmith, and I would look up and see who wrote them. Desmond Child was all over this thing.
Right.
And I'd never heard of Desmond Child. I mean, I heard of Desmond Child in Rouge, but, and that was his little moment there. But I said, who is this guy, Desmond Child? So Shep and I found him. We looked him up. I said, I love what you do with Bon Jovi. I need to be the same thing, only I needed to be darker and sexier. And the first thing we wrote was Poison.
Wow.
Which was a major hit. Yeah, international hit.
that song's got, like close to 600 million streams on Spotify right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing how that song just went crazy. Yeah.
The last thing I want to talk about before we finish up, Alice, is, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Wayne's World. You want to talk about Feed My Frankenstein and We're Not Worthy?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy! Yeah, that was, I loved that bit on Saturday Night Live. And it was, it was really funny. And then they called us up, said, you're probably the only one that would fit into this thing of sort of that eternal rock star that nobody would ever get to meet.
Right.
And they get to meet you. So they're in awe that we're not worthy. I got there and we were supposed to just do the song, Feed My Frankenstein.
Bring you to a simmer, right on time. Run my greasy fingers up your greasy spine. Feed my Frankenstein. Make my libido. He's a psycho. Feed my Frankenstein. Hungry for love and it's feeding time.
And, Mike says, well, he says, you're an actor. He says, you can handle some dialogue, right? And I went, yeah, of course. Well, he hands me about 3 pages of dialogue. and I said, well, when are we shooting this? And he goes, in about half an hour.
Perfect.
So they did everything they could to make me laugh to the dialogue. And I couldn't memorize it all. I got some of it, but then I would just start riffing, on some of the stuff.
So, do you come to Milwaukee often?
Well, I'm a regular visitor here, but Milwaukee has certainly had its share of visitors. The French missionaries and explorers were coming here as early as the late 1600s to trade with the Native Americans. Actually, it's pronounced Miliwake, which is Algonquin for the good land.
I was not aware of that.
I think one of the most interesting aspects of Milwaukee is the fact that it's the only major American city to have ever elected 3 socialist mayors.
Does this guy know how to party or what? Huh?
We're Not Worthy ended up, if I go to an airport, I get We're Not Worthy 3 times.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, and the fact that, here it is 2025 and, 60 years later, you're still doing this. Your music is still being introduced to a new generation of fans. You're still on the road. Everyone should go out and see Alice Cooper. And the music, is a legacy to everything that you've done with great songs. You're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You have a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and it just keeps going. And, we are thrilled to be able to talk to you and really appreciate it. So thank you, Alice. Take care, guys.
Thank you, man.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. A big thank you to Hall of Famer Alice Cooper for joining us this week. From I'm 18 and School's Out to Only Women Bleed and Poison, Alice's music and theatrical vision have helped transform rock and roll and inspire a generation of artists who followed. To learn more about his life and music, check out his memoir, Alice Cooper Golf Monster, and visit alicecooper.com for tour dates, news, and more. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time for another episode of Rock and Roll High School.
Rock and Roll High School is a presentation of Pure Tone Music, produced by Pete Ganbarg with assistance from Steve Leeds, Joe Pomerico, Dana Stenson, Aaron Menuza, Christina Katsamanidis, and Rich Mahan. Please visit our website at rockschoolpodcast.com for past episodes and information on what's coming next. All rights reserved.